Evening's Board of Education meeting. Before we begin, I'd like to share with the audience that if you need Spanish translation services, we have Lupita here to assist you.
Buenas tardes. Antes de comenzar, nada más quería anunciar que tenemos servicios de interpretación al español y estoy aquí para servirles.
Thank you, Lupita. On behalf of the board, we'd like to share a reminder regarding the process for public comments during board meetings. For each agendized action, discussion, or information-only item, the board will hear from staff, provide an opportunity for public comment, then hold a board discussion and vote if necessary. Public comment on non-agendized items will be heard during item 6, and public comment on closed session items will be heard during item 9 before adjourning into closed sessions. To help us organize public comment using this system, if you wish to provide public comment, please complete a speaker card located at the entrance to the meeting room and provide it to the executive assistant to the left of Sharon Michelle. Speaker cards for public comment will be accepted prior to the calling for the public comment portion of an agenda item. I call this meeting to order at 5:32 p.m. and would now like to establish a quorum by roll call vote.
Board President Jason Remenzi,
Yes.
Board Clerk Seabury Nockbar,
Yes.
Board Member Sarah Hines,
Yes.
Board Member Anne Marie Rosen,
Yes.
Board Member Carl Palestrini.
Yes.
May I receive a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda. Can I get a second to adopt the agenda?
Second.
Second.
Board President Jason Remenzi,
Yes.
Board Clerk Seabury Nockbar,
Yes.
Board Member Sarah Hines,
Yes.
Board Member Anne Marie Rosen,
Yes.
Board Member Carl Palestrini.
Yes.
I'd like to notify the audience that the open session will be audio taped, broadcast, and recorded for the district's YouTube channel. Now, can I ask Seabury to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Item 2, reports. These are routine status updates regarding campus activities, meeting schedules, conferences, and meetings attended, and recent developments from our student representative and our unions, the ACT and CSEA. We'll start with our student representative report with Colin Pritchard.
Hello. I'm going to start with the Child Development Center, which is currently just getting into their new routine and getting to know their teachers. Tularcitos is currently from September 9th to 13th. The No Screens for Ice Cream is occurring. Principal Peterson described this event as one of the most enjoyed weeks of Tular families each year. The No Screens for Ice Cream Week is where you get a week without screens, more quality time with your family, and your child gets ice cream for participating. I wish I could take part in that. Wow. And then on Friday, September 27th, will be the Tularcitos PTO Fall Festival at Captain Cooper. They're also just getting used and start with their lesson plans. But one thing that I found really interesting was that students in 4th and 5th grade have selected an instrument to learn how to play, which is very interesting. At Carmel River School, there was a beach cleanup this past Saturday on September 7th. Also, the new parent party is on Friday, the 13th of September. And please, parents, do not forget to RSVP. The River Dads Camp Out is on September 27th. The Farmers Market is on October the 18th, and the Fall Festival is on October the 25th. Now, at Carmel Middle, on August 30th, Carmel Middle School hosted the annual 8th grade Ohana Day. Now, this is a day dedicated to the 8th grade class having time to bond with each other, as well as be role models for the 6th and 7th graders. They participated in 6 games to build leadership skills and class connectivity. And on top of that, the 8th graders were each given custom Ohana Day sweatshirts. Now at Carmel Valley High School, they have started the parent meetings this week where they discuss the individual learning plans each student created, which discuss career goals and academic goals. Now this meeting is entirely directed by the students and is a big part of what they do at Carmel Valley High School. Now finally, with Carmel High School, the AVID class is planning to visit NorCal colleges on September 19th and 20th. As well, Principal Duthman also plans on taking the students to visit Cal Poly San Luis Obispo and Cuesta College on October 3rd. And the pool has been thoroughly thoroughly cleaned by the MOT department. We're very happy about that. And Ms. Duthman is working very hard on ways to have conversations with the staff and students about the issues regarding racism and anti-Semitism on campus. And finally, Dr. Casey Grover will be giving a drug presentation for families in the CHS Theater on November 19th at 5:30 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Cullen. Next, we'll have ACT reports with President Elizabeth Marsh.
Say good evening. Hi. So, as we recognize September 11th, this day of remembrance, and our presidential campaigns are in full swing, it's an apt time to thank our CUSD school board candidates. Your participation in ACT's endorsement process is appreciated. Good luck to all candidates, and thank you very much for your commitment to our schools. Here are a few notes or observations from the past month. All of our teachers participated in vertical articulation meetings at last Friday's minimum day. We met across sites and departments to discuss how we can continue to coordinate our instruction from TK through 12th grade. The statewide healthcare affordability board met not in Sacramento last month, but here in Monterey County on August 28th. Our own Lisa Brazil spoke about how the high cost of healthcare in our county is affecting employees. I look forward to upcoming conversations with Lisa, Yvonne Perez, and other leaders about how we can influence factors that affect those high rates for patients and businesses, including CUSD, who is, as you well know, covering the largest share of those medical premiums. And it was very encouraging to see MOT and architects at some of our sites scouting locations for additional adult bathrooms. Yes, I'm really talking about bathrooms. And people really were excited to see that we might be getting more on our campuses. And Apple Pie's preschool staff shared their plans and excitement about moving back into their own space after construction. And finally, I'd like to reiterate what an honor it is to represent the 209 certificated staff members in our bargaining unit. I'm even more impressed with our staff than I was prior to serving in this position. When I have the privilege of hearing, and it is hoped, helping our educators with their concerns, I get to see even more deeply how committed they are to their craft and their students. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Next, we'll have a CSEA report with President Lisa Brazil.
Good evening, everyone. I'm not super prepared tonight, but I want to thank all of the Board of Education candidates who applied for an endorsement. We have reached a decision, and those announcements will go out tomorrow. Good luck to all the candidates. This has been a very busy month. As Elizabeth mentioned, I recently attended the Office of Healthcare Affordability meeting that was held in Seaside. And it was an entire day of a conversation about the cost of healthcare on the peninsula and how we are an outlier in the state. We are considered the most expensive place to receive healthcare in the state of California. So there's a lot of investigation that the state is doing into that. Yesterday, I met with the Central Labor Council's Healthcare Coalition, and we'll be working with them ongoing to determine ways to address the cost of healthcare here, as it impacts not only our members, but it impacts our students, our schools, because it costs our district a lot of money as well. And that's money that's not going to students because it's paying for healthcare. So I really implore the district and the school board and anyone listening to pay attention to this issue. It's a very large issue. The Monterey County hospitals are being investigated for a reason, and anybody who's interested in reading up on these costs, and I have a series of articles and PowerPoints that I'd be happy to share with you, but we can't fight this alone. We need the employers as well as the unions to tackle this, and it's going to be a long fight, and I hope you will join us in it. Closer to home, negotiations began in earnest today with the district, and I have to say I think it went really well. We're off to a really strong start, and we look forward to the next several months of negotiations. We all have long lists, and but we jumped right in today and a lot got accomplished. Thank you to Craig Chavez and his team. It was a really positive day. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Agenda item 3, superintendent report. These are routine status updates regarding campus activities, meeting schedules, conferences, and meetings attended, and recent developments from Superintendent Sharon Offek.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to keep my comments brief, but hopefully poignant this evening. So today, we remember the events of September 11th, 2001, a day when many lives were lost and many people showed great bravery. In the aftermath of 9/11, people came together in amazing ways, showing kindness and support. This reminds us that when we face hard times, we are stronger when we work together. As we think about what happened, let's also remember how important it is to stick together and help one another. So on this 23rd anniversary of 9/11, and as we honor those who we lost, let's try, I implore everybody to try at least, to be just as caring and as united as we were back in 2001. We need to remember that hate and unfair treatment of others is not okay. Anti-Semitism, discrimination, hate speech, bullying, and harassment hurt our community and go against what we believe in and what we want to instill in our children. We should always stand up against these wrongs and show respect for everyone. So let's make sure that we take care of each other, think about each other, and make sure our community is a place where everyone is treated kindly and fairly. Let's also make sure to do our part of making the world a better place. So again, on this day of remembrance, I hope that we can promise to work together and build a future where support and respect for each other is very obvious. This is the best way to honor those who we lost on that day and to create a world full of understanding and peace.
Thank you, Sharon. Agenda item 4, the consent calendar. The board may bundle a number of items and act upon them together in one motion through the use of a consent calendar. Consent agenda items are routine items deemed to be non-controversial, for which board discussion is not anticipated and for which the superintendent recommends approval. There will be no discussion on these items prior to a vote unless any members of the board request specific items to be removed for discussion. The board will now open up for public comment, and we did not receive public comment for the consent agenda. If nobody wants to pull any items, may I receive a motion to, go ahead.
Consent calendar F.
F.
Item K and L, please.
F, K, and L. I don't see a K.
Under item F,
Okay,
there's
K and L.
all the service agreements, subsection K, subsection.
Okay, floor is yours.
Two items.
Whenever you're ready, Emery. Oh, sorry. May I receive a motion to adopt the consent calendar minus item F, sub-items K and L?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar with the removal of agenda item F, K, and L.
Second that.
Board President Jason Remenzi,
Yes.
Board Clerk Seabury Nockbar,
Yes.
Board Member Sarah Hines,
Yes.
Board Member Anne Marie Rosen,
Yes.
Board Member Carl Palestrini.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I wanted to just mention something because I had pulled these items, I had asked a question about them, and I just wanted to just throw out something that K and L of that subsection we have the first one is with Leadership Associates, and it is for their organizational structure, determining administrative functions and or job responsibilities, yada, yada, yada. The second one is providing services to assist the district to develop a new updated strategic plan. The reason why I'm asking about these items was something that Sharon had said in her response back to me, which was something about the evaluation for the superintendent, which I can't talk about in specific because I can't speak about personnel items, but I can talk about the fact that there is an evaluation. Some of these items that we've been making contracts on and throwing them under our contractor under consent calendar are items that have habitually been handled by the superintendent and the cabinet. And these are items now that we have out for contractor services. So the public does not have any sort of oversight in terms of the board being their oversight for it. And also, these are things that we usually evaluate the superintendent on, and we have, as a board, we have no ability to, evaluate on these items because they're now done by a contractor services. And I'm curious as to what my board has to say, because I can't talk to you guys other than here about it, and the fact that these items are now no longer in-house. How are we supposed to evaluate, determining whatever we evaluate on? How are we supposed to evaluate a superintendent without those items being done by the superintendent, I guess?
Well, let me ask you specifically, what are the items that are usually handled within, in your opinion, that are problematic?
We have, and taking a look at our organizational structure, seeing what is there, where needs are, to get either additional personnel or to have existing personnel do these items, for one of them. The other one is for the strategic plan, which has been in the past, historically, has been taken up by the superintendent and or with the cabinet's help. And I'm wondering, now we're contracting them out, and I've heard that people are saying that we're no longer a small cute little school district. We are now this big monolith, as to say, as big as a monolith as we can possibly get, but that we are we're no longer this hometown school district, and by contracting everything out, we're not taking a look at our own personnel. We're having somebody from the outside taking a look at us, which may or may not be a good, bad thing. It may be a really good thing. But in terms of what we evaluate our superintendent on, we no longer have these major items. I mean, we no longer have, the communication with the superintendent in terms of Volaire. We no longer have Title IX done in-house, which was done by Paul Bean before Ted. We have the Schooletics, which is the interpreting, scores, and now we have got, making up our own strategic plan is going to be something that is going to be passed out to these, contractors. And we're going to have our, how we're supposed to distribute our personnel done by somebody from the outside. And I just wanted to hear what my board members had to say about it, because I don't get a chance to talk to you guys about this except in public.
So I have, and I don't know how much detail we can get into, but I know there is historical references that Carmel Unified has used third parties in the past to do our strategic plan. So I don't know, Jason or Sharon, if you guys want to go into any more detail, but I do know that has been outsourced. And again, I don't know how much we can talk about in terms of the superintendent evaluation, but it was agreed upon that we would use a third party to do the strategic plan that was given board approval. And I think, Sharon, you're going to go into more detail on that this evening. But again, that was approved by the entire board. And there is historical data that we have always outsourced that. And then I did want to make one correction, that post Paul Bean, under the previous superintendent, Title IX was also outsourced.
But Paul Bean did at least a portion of Title IX as part of it.
Post Paul Bean, it was outsourced. I don't recall her name at the time.
Always the legal part of it was always outsourced, no matter what, but the investigation part of it,
was outsourced.
It was outsourced. But Title IX has got 4 different portions to it. And so the coordinator, we had somebody that acted in a coordinator position. Not saying that it's a good thing or a bad thing that we have it outsourced. It's neither one or the other. I'm just saying we're taking some major items that normally a superintendent would be handling and working with and seeing how that superintendent would work with their cabinet to get these achieved with in-house, and now these are done to outside contractors. And I'm just wondering what are we gonna, we're coming up on making another evaluation before this board, dispenses, and it's no longer gonna be in existence as this board after November. And I'm wondering, because we're gonna be doing an evaluation, what are we gonna be looking at, or how we're gonna do that? And I don't know how to discuss it without discussing it, and, because Brown Act makes everything so much more complicated.
I think, which is one last thing on the strategic plan. I think under CSBA, it is largely a strategy that's used by most school districts, that the strategic plan does have a facilitator that engages with the district. And I think just based on the presentation slides that were presented to the community at the time the agenda was posted, I think Sharon's going to go into more detail about the community engagement and the board engagement and district staff engagement that will be part of the strategic plan. And I think there is definitely board visibility into all parts of the strategic plan, which is going to be led, by a third party. And I think he'll be with us this evening. So I think it'll be a good opportunity for us to be able to ask him questions, because again, I do think this is a widely used practice, and a practice that is underscored and recommended by the California State School Board Association.
Yeah, I was just going to say exactly that it's my understanding that majority of districts do this out of house. I think Title IX for sure, strategic plan, evaluation obviously thinks we need an expert to come in. And I think we need to make sure that the public understands that it's not like this is being handed off and dealt with, that there's many regular touch bases obviously with Sharon and then with the board as well. So it's not an activity that takes place completely outside of board purview at all. And from my experience, and also just with conversations that I've had with Sharon, it seems to be mostly outsourced. This is typical rather than atypical to outsource this.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that, and I don't hear a lot of stuff from people in downtown Carmel, so you guys are more attuned to what that is. But I keep getting rumblings from people, and people coming up to me and saying, you guys are moving away from our hometown school where we did everything here, and now we're moving to outsourcing it. Now, considering all the problems that we have, yada, yada, I think that's probably a good idea in some ways. But you just take a look at what happened today in CSBA, their roundup. You look at Bakersfield just had a huge thing with Title IX that they were having, and they actually brought people in-house, and they really honed in on it and made it a big deal there. But what I'm saying is, if we're outsourcing most of this to somebody else to do it, what are we supposed to be evaluating on?
I think we still have oversight of Sharon, and we can evaluate her on the outcome and the process that we go through to get to that point. So if she hires somebody to do the leadership associates to go over this and the strategic plan, and the process doesn't look good, and we don't include community members, she takes the fall for that, and she's held accountable for that, is the way I see it. I'm okay with a lot of the outsourcing, not everything being outsourced, because we need local involvement. But these, I see them as facilitators beyond the Title IX coordinator. The Title IX coordinator, which I'm fine that being 100% outsourced, as small as this community is, everybody's connected in 5 different ways, and it makes it really hard for anybody to perform a unbiased investigation. There's always somebody in your ear that knows the person that's happening, so I like that idea. And with these, I see it as a facilitator. I've seen some great facilitation over the last year and a half, and having a professional that only does this, I think bolsters the legitimacy of it and the final outcome.
It just seemed to me, as coming from the teacher perspective, when I took a look at this and after I had read the response, I was like, well, this sounds like the time that the teachers decided, well, not the teachers, but a district employee decided to come after all the math teachers and say, we need to redo all of the way you do things. And the tutors came up and said, we want to have all the tests so we can take a look at them and see if we're thinking that this is okay. And I'm like, wait a second. So you want to take a look at the test, so when your students come in here to take the test, they've already seen the test before. And I'm like, how are you supposed to effectively grade that person? And so that's what makes it, that's what sort of was confusing in my mind, how we're supposed to adequately evaluate somebody on their performance on said item, whatever that said item is, how we're supposed to do that, and yet when it's being outsourced. And so that's why I'm asking my fellow
Yeah.
board members to kind of clarify, in my mind, how we're supposed to do that.
I appreciate what you're saying, and I still go back to, like, I see it as Sharon holds the bag on who she brought in to make that happen, and if the outcome's not satisfactory to the board, we have the say over that, and we have the power as the group to redirect.
Just a quick thought on it.
Please.
You know, I've seen an awful lot of these strategic plans have been around for about 35 years in the district. And as you can see what the district has done to me, take a look here, folks. But here's the deal. Bringing in professional help, I think, has been of added value for Carmel Unified, because when we were doing it ourselves, we had too many goals. And we weren't familiar with structure in terms of how to reduce and focus. And until we got some professional help, you know, I think we were trying to do too much. And what happened there is prioritization. We have too many, and then follow through with too many. And you can do that when you're a small district and you don't have, you know, a lot of people, you know, districts around you to use as examples. So my experience is the ones that we did homemade were too big and too grandiose and not focused. So, you know, I think where you get professional help is to say, what can you really get done? And, you know, how do you want to prioritize? I think that's the value in bringing in professional help. And I've seen it, believe me, both ways.
The concern, I'm just throwing this out, and I'm sorry to kind of put it under here, but this is the topic that brought up this concern. We're taking a look at these contracts, and it's, I mean, 90,000 here, 98,000 there, 30,000 there, 20,000, 30,000. We're getting up there in the 200 and some odd $1,000 in addition to what, you know, we're paying the superintendent and the cabinet to do. And so I'm just saying, at some point in time, I think we need to take a look at that as a board and be fiscally responsible and say, look, what are we signing ourselves up for? And what are we signing the next board up for? Because these contracts are going to be, you know, for a while.
Well, and I would say as well, Anne Marie, that I think it's important to remember too that this is, I think this was Sharon's approach initially, which is to kind of assess and determine what long-term commitment is needed from an employee before we hire. And so I actually appreciate her kind of pausing, outsourcing as much as possible for a lower amount of funds before we take a deeper commitment with a full-time employee or even a part-time employee.
But I mean, prior to this, the cabinet was dividing up these jobs with the superintendent and getting them done. So we weren't actually having any more people do it. Now, I saw what Paul Behan looked like. I mean, you know what Paul Behan looked like. I mean, doing Title IX, the Public Information Officer, and technology. I mean, Paul, if you're out there, you were underpaid
You know,
for
just,
what you did.
well, just a quick thought. You know, one of the things Ted did when he got here was to expand the central office in terms of support, because he took one look at it and said, this is really understaffed.
Right.
And too many people, like you say, doing too many jobs. So that outside perspective immediately focused on the need for more help.
Right.
And so I think in that regard, it probably makes sense in terms of doing some of that and adding the help. It'd be nice to, and the other thing too is we're pretty unique. We have a big budget and not very many kids.
Mm-hmm. And they're going down according to the demographics.
That's true. How do you afford to live here? That one of those things. But, you know, I think, so that was identified by the previous superintendent.
Yeah, Carl, I think everybody's had their thoughts out. I think we have enough
Sorry,
to go.
I
I'm
appreciate
glad
you
we talked
guys
about it, and I think you had a
being able
good
to talk
conversation
about
about
it,
it.
and I
But I think for
apologize
a
to the
deep
public.
dive, we got to do an agendized
Thank you.
item
No,
to
no,
really
thank you.
go into it, or do it during a budget study session.
I just needed to have a clarification
I'm
from
glad you
the
brought it up.
board, so I got the clarification from the board, and thank you very much for having this impromptu discussion. Thank you.
Can I receive a motion to approve agenda item F, independent contractor service agreements for items K and L?
So moved as presented.
I'll second it.
Board President Jason Remenzi,
Yes.
Board Clerk Seabury Nockbar,
Yes.
Board Member Sarah Hines,
Yes.
Board Member Anne Marie Rosen,
Yes.
Board Member Carl Palestrini.
Yes.
Agenda item 5A, summer 2024 program overview with Superintendent Sharon Offek.
All right, good evening. So this evening, we actually have our coordinator of all of our summer programs, Lee Cambra, here. Lee is a teacher at the high school, but also spends a significant amount of time working on coordinating, organizing, and planning, and making sure we implement properly all of the different elements of our summer programs in accordance with all of the different rules and regulations for those programs. So she's here to report out on the summer of 2024. And in true Lee Cambra fashion, she's already got plans and ideas in the hopper for summer 2025. So I'll turn it over to Lee, who has a slide deck for us, and she'll go ahead and present the information.
All right, thank you. Hi. I've learned with all the new regulations coming from the state, we have to plan 1, 2, 3 years out so that we get all of the required dates done within the time frame that they say. So, so lessons have been learned, and I like to plan ahead. So, yeah. So I just use this. Point it over here. All right. Fun. Okay, so just some summer highlights. So things that we do over the summer, yes, there are things that are required by the state for us to do in terms of extended learning opportunities programs, but we also do have credit recovery at the high school, and that was led by Blaze DiGirolamo this year. And then some other just highlights. Cooper did their traditional first week in June. This year, their theme was Around the World Adventure. You'll see on the next slide some photos. They took everybody to the zoo. They had about 25 students there that week. That's the first week of June. And then after that, we went into our traditional K-8 summer school, and it was held at River this year. And we also partnered with Carmel Valley Community Youth Center. So if you know Carla ran an afternoon program for us at Tular that was very well received. So that was an exciting partnership. And then at River, we held the TK through 6 summer school. There was also ESY there. CMS also had the middle school ESY. We also had a very small partnership with Basketball Jones, but we did get to have a student go there. They were going into 7th grade, and we thought they'd have more fun at basketball camp than at elementary summer school. So it worked out great. And then Kashawa, of course, Caton's always coming up with new things there, and so they had some new field trips this year. We had the traditional swim week with both Cooper kids and the Kashawa kids. And so we kept our partnership with the YMCA. They helped out quite a bit this summer. And then we had a new partnership with the Wave where some of the Cooper students got to go to the Wave. And then those students that didn't get to go to the Wave because it was only for certain grade levels, the rest of them were invited to actually go to the YMCA in Monterey and do a camp there. Wrong way. Okay. This is some photos of the Cooper kids. They got to go to the Monterey Zoo. And so I know they had a great time with that. They had to break up into 3 or 4 groups, and they all traveled around and did some exploring at the zoo together. And then these are some photos that Miss Galuli took. Her class got to make on the last couple of days. They did some tie-dyeing. So here's some photos of that. More photos from summer school. This is the last day the art class did these did these bubbles, and we also had a visitor from a weasel. So I included that in there because that was not something we were expecting. So they're super cute, but they should be outside. But so I've like forever, I got to see a weasel. And people were like, wow, I've never seen a weasel up close. You're so lucky. Apparently they're good luck and all this great stuff. So that was on the last day. We had a weasel. Yeah. Here's a photo. So Kate came up with some great new partnerships this year as well. They worked with Big Sur Land Trust. They went out to Middledorf Preserve, and at that same day, they met up with Carmel Youth Baseball, and they got to do some batting practice and some different things out in the valley with some of the guys who run Carmel Youth Baseball. So that was really cool. They went to Hastings Reserve again, and then they also went to, it's the Happy Girl Kitchen Farm, and Sharon can tell you all about that trip. And she has some great photos of where that's located. Or not. Monterey Wharf, so that was a partnership with the Surfrider Foundation to learn more about what Surfrider Foundation does. My question was, does a Despicable Me new movie come out every single summer? Because they went and saw Despicable Me 4 and went to the Dennis Menace Park and Carmel Valley Pool as tradition. And here's their last day finale. That's the big day that they now work towards. So these are all of the counselors and volunteers and staff members in the matching shirts. It's often the same people coming back every year. It's just a great program. And it's really exciting to see the same faces come back. And then we have some of our campers. They had typically had about 60 to 70 students there every day for a Kashawa camp for those 3 weeks. Looking forward, so because the Extended Learning Opportunities Program is something that we have to do 30 additional days, and it has to be within a certain time frame, one thing that we are exploring, at least with middle school, is doing some intersession camps, and then possibly during October break, spring break, February break, and then we're also looking at doing an intersession camp in spring break for the elementary schools so that we could pull in more of those required days, but make this really a lot more useful and just relevant to what our families really need here. And so with that comes some partnerships with YMCA, again, partnership with Carmel Valley Community Youth Center, and then we also are working with Yogativity to bring them in as well. So, so keeping a lot of the same structure, but adding in intersessions and a few more partnerships next year is what we're working on. And that's it.
I think it's really important to emphasize that the ELOP has districts prioritize partnerships with community partners to cover the 9-hour day for most districts. That is built into the requirements. We have struggled over the years that I've worked with Lee to find reliable community partners. So, but we learn a lot every year, and we have a better program as a result of it every year. So I thank Lee for all of her effort, all of her interest, all of her exploration, and her creativity above all to make all of these moving parts feel seamless to everyone experiencing them, except for her. So she does a great job, and we're meeting in a week or two to have a transition with our new deputy superintendent, Dr. Mary Petty, who will take over and help plan with Lee Cambra. So thank you so much for all your effort over all these years and into next year.
Thanks.
The board did not receive any requests for public comments, so we'll start with the board, starting with Carl and working our way back this way. And we'll end with Cullen.
Yeah, Lee, absolutely phenomenal. It really is. All those activities for the kids that are the farthest away from us, most of them, is incredible. I got a chance to see some of the activities at Tular, and was out there for the closing ceremonies of the Kashawa crew out there. And I mean, what would they be doing without this? To me, it's just incredible. You did catch me on Basketball Jones. Do you just pay the tuition for the kids that want to go? Okay.
Yeah, there's more to it, but
there's probably a little more to it, yeah. Yeah, that's a for-profit kind of deal, but still.
there's just one student,
Well, no, I think it's a great thing. Don't get me wrong. Maybe you have a pool of money where you can actually kind of get that done. But anyway, tip of the hat for a fantastic job.
Hi, thank you for all that you do. I really appreciate it. I've been following you since you started out doing this, so thank you. I just wanted to say that I got around to quite a few of them, just dropped in, checked it out. I was up in Kashawa a couple of times because some of their volunteers did not show up, and so I was the nearest warm body to go up there. When I was up there, I found out that Caden, for all of his volunteers, because you saw the picture with all the people at the very end, all the light blue shirts, he actually interviews each and every one of them and has them get used to going through an interview process to be able to be selected. And then he and the Kashawa, Friends of Kashawa Center actually raise funds to be able to pay their volunteers. So if a child does not have the appropriate interview outfit, they will actually go with them to a thrift store, pick out an outfit for them, get them ready for the interview, prep them for the interview, and then actually conduct the interview. So it actually has some great benefits for, higher grades as well as the youngsters. So, please add whatever you need to do.
So I want to say this. We started a new program this year called Ambassadors at the high school, and that also was an interview process. And one of the students wanted to be an ambassador, but she wasn't sure. And she needed, you had to go through the interview, you had to apply, you had to have a reference. And I said, you volunteer at Kashawa every year, you'll be great at this. And she was really nervous about it, and she put Mr. A as her reference. And she has been our all-star. And I think a lot of it is because of all the experience that she's had at Kashawa and getting to have all this leadership experience. And she's been the all-star. You can ask Linda Galupo. This is the person that we rely on to give tours. She's bilingual, and she gives our tours. And she's been fabulous. She was my student of the month, and I credit so much of her confidence for what's going on at Kashawa.
Anyway, I love how it's all kind of gelling together, so thank you for coordinating it.
Thanks for everything that you do. I know this is no small feat, and I appreciate all the forward thinking and the planning that you're already doing. I think we've said it all, that your program is incredible, and I was with Carl at the end of summer celebration in Kashawa, and it was just fabulous. So thank you, and I look forward to this same presentation next year.
I just had just two quick questions. Recruitment, how do you get the word out there? Because obviously you have a tremendous amount of interest. There's a lot of students signing up to participate in this. And then do you get student input at all for the different themes that you have, the different types of camps?
So up through this year, the students have all come as a requirement from the state that we invite certain populations of students, unduplicated populations of students, as well as for the actual summer school portion, there's recommendations that happen from the principals. And then of course, credit recovery, those are the students who got D's and F's at the high school. But moving forward, we are trying to expand this to more of a blended program where what we would love to see is that this could be open to everybody, fee-based, and then of course the unduplicated population of students would get to go for free. But that's what we're moving towards, so that the more students that are there, honestly, the more fun it is, So we are looking at, and I've spoken to many of my friends with students at Tular and at River, and they are always looking for an affordable camp, whether it's during an intersession or during summer. So that's the next step, is to build this up so that any student could attend if they wanted to. There would just be different ways that we would fund for them to go.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you as well. You can tell this is obviously coming from your heart. You have a real passion for this, and we can see that. So thank you.
Thank you, Lee. As a kid that grew up going to scholarship programs for the city of Monterey and like Camp Kinsabe, I love it that in an unincorporated area we can do this for our students, and we have the privilege to be able to do that and offer that. And I like the idea of opening it up to other kids just to get as many involved as possible. Colin, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, the the summer programs, it's something I'm learning a lot more about. But speaking on ambassadors, I have a lot of friends that do it. I know how much they love it, and I know how much you inspire them to really become better leaders. So thank you for that.
And this was an information-only item, so no action is required. Thank you so much, Lee. Agenda item 5B, strategic planning and visioning with Superintendent Sharon Offek.
All right, good evening. I'm going to go grab the All right, so as you heard a little bit earlier, the board has expressed interest in engaging in a strategic planning and visioning process to create a new strategic plan for Carmel Unified School District. To that end, we've contracted with a facilitator who is available online, but I'm going to share the slides right now and go over them, and then he'll be available in our question period as well. So the very first part about strategic planning and visioning is the basic idea of creating a coherent and clear vision for our district, one where we come up with a collective vision that articulates what the community's aspirations are for its students. So that's the purpose of this process and the reason why we engage in it to begin with. And it allows us to have some focus and some priorities and some areas in which we can very clearly identify to demonstrate growth and improvement, or our commitments as well. The process is a multi-step process. The creation of a strategic plan includes a variety of different elements to it, but a purpose, core values, focus areas, and strategies. We've talked about purpose and values, mission and vision, all those kinds of elements in the past, but there are also the next layers that have to be determined through community input around focus areas and strategies that we would like to see engaged in to accomplish those focus areas or to make progress in those focus areas. So those are the different elements that would be reviewed and discussed, and providing input from community would be taken into consideration for revision of what we currently have, or just really creating brand new statements for these elements of any strategic plan. And then we have a process that has multiple parts. An input session, which you've heard me say now a few times, but that is a community input session that includes involvement from community stakeholders along with district employees. So it's a combination of parents and teachers and instructional aides and administrators and students and any number of different folks in our community who help support us and in terms of providing for our students at the most excellent education and opportunities for their own future success. So that happens in a 2-day period with a lot of very intentional planning, where I would say the emphasis is a presentation or like a conversation and a discussion around what is our current state in these particular areas, and then what is the desired state that we look for, kind of like a SWOT analysis, if you are familiar with that. Then from there, a small writing team, because you can't write in a group of 50 or 60 people, a small group of people, maybe 5 or 6 at the most, you have a writing team who takes all that input and creates a draft, sends it out to the stakeholder group for feedback, and there's this whole feedback loop that happens back and forth with the presentation after a period of time with to the Board of Education. For us, to be clear about a timeline for us, we're targeting the November 20th board meeting to bring a first read. And then there's this, like I said, ongoing feedback loop. At some point, however, depending on how that feedback loop goes, we would need to adopt the strategic plan, and that would happen at a board meeting where the final recommended strategic plan is brought forward. And then after that, then we have to have plans for implementation. So those are the different elements. We are planning to, like I said, working backwards from that November 20th target date for a first read for the board. We are planning to have the community input session towards the end of October, because we need to give time for people to accept an invitation and mark it on their calendars, etc. And nothing's happening and going out until this evening when you approve the process. So that's the backwards mapping based on that November 20th date. And with that, we have a facilitator who has done a number of these strategic plans in a number of small school districts, actually, that have a very similar demographic. But he's done it for nonprofit organizations as well. And he is a retired superintendent and has a lot of experience with communities similar to ours as well. So he's available for questions and answers as well. And that's it.
Thank you. The board did not receive any requests for public comment on this item, so we'll open up for board discussion, starting with Carl.
So a little more detail. What would we expect, Sharon, on November 20th?
You would receive a first reading or a first draft of the proposed plan that came from input from stakeholders at that community input session.
So we're looking at, if we make it through the November 20th session, to be going into the next couple of steps: feedback loop, adopt, implement, and we're looking at for possibly next spring. Timeline for being able to start to implement. I'm looking towards the end, the last one.
Oh, well, I think that depends on how our feedback loop works,
Okay.
and the time frame it takes to arrive at a
Okay.
plan that everyone is, okay with and excited about and wants to implement, and then we adopt it, and then we move forward in that regard.
Okay. It was
So
just
it's
because-
harder, mapping it from the first read is easier to schedule all those pieces, and then that iterative loop is determined by the volume of feedback or requests for changes, et cetera. And I certainly can't speak to the time frame that it takes. I think it's independent, based on my conversations at least with Dr. Domini. It just depends on the community and the degree to which people want to revise.
Okay. So this is just going to be the first feedback loop after the writing session is going to be the November 20th, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
It will be a first read for the board.
Right, okay. So the only reason I'm stating that is that November 20th meeting is the last time that this 5 of us will be together,
Mhm.
and there will only be 2 of us left over here and 3 new bodies in here. So that's going to bring a different perspective, and I was just wondering how far away it is from that first feedback loop to when it starts to implement, to get it separated from this group of people that are here. We're looking at community stakeholders. Are we going to be having community people, the childless cat ladies and stuff like that involved, or is it just people who are associated directly with the school? In terms
Please
of,
clarify what you mean by associated with the school.
somebody who happens to live next door who has no children, grandchildren involved in the school. Are they going to be, somebody would approach those type of people to come in and talk about what they're seeing for the?
So
or
in
is it-
general, when we do outreach like this, it is done through organizations. So for example, we would do I'll just use the Carmel by the Sea City Council,
Mhm.
right? We work with them. They support our students in any number of different ways. We partner with them, and we would offer them a seat in the session to send someone to participate. Our Rotary clubs, for example, Carmel Valley Rotary provides a lot of support for our students. So those are organizations that are engaging in our school district that would then have community members affiliated with them that would be participating.
Thank you. That's what I was getting at. And you said it so much more eloquently than I did. Thank you. So we're going to be looking at like town hall sessions, or is this going to be just a small enough group to go do roundtable in here or something like that? Or I don't
It
know
is
how
not
many-
a town hall. It is a group of people who are invited and accept the invitation to participate. It takes 2 days. And again, Dr. Domini can speak to the process that he uses to facilitate these and ultimately results in a high quality product. If you see any of the, we want our own plan, but he's done a number of plans with other districts that are high quality products that are in place and providing direction for those districts. And we would have our own, it would happen here in this room. That's the
And
objective.
that was what I
Mhm.
was asking about. So we're gonna be looking at, possibly looking at like mission statement, things like that to look at, or just strictly sticking with?
So the elements of the strategic plan would be reviewed, that whole strategic ideology that would absolutely be reviewed based on the ones we currently have, right? Current state, desired state, do things match? What needs to happen in between? It's very similar to a SWOT process.
Okay, so it would be sounds like a full 2 days worth of.
It is a full 2 days.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it. And I look forward to having Dr. Domini tell us more about the process. Thank you.
Can you go into a little bit more detail about the Board of Education involvement when these key stakeholder sort of community feedback engagement sessions happen over the course of the 2 days?
Sure. So the approach right now is to have the community stakeholders participate and create a proposal, and the writing team write up something and get feedback, like I said, and go back and forth until it is at a point where it can be presented to the board as a product to review and improve. During those 2 days, I would extend an invitation to you to come observe the process for a period of time, probably like an hour or something. But your involvement and your engagement is on the adoption end of it, and on the review end of it.
Helpful, thank you.
Yeah.
How long is a strategic plan usually, what's the time frame?
Great question. So typically they last, 5 to 6 years. You pick a number of focus areas, although not too many, because otherwise the whole point is to have focus and to have attention to specific things. If you pick too many, you lose that benefit of doing this work. So where our conversation has been around selecting maybe 5 focus areas within which we would have the community input focus on, and they'd have some information shared with them and data and whatever else they need in terms of the current state, and then look at that. And depending on what the outcomes are, I would say some plans are 5 years, some plans are 6 years. I think that in our current time frame, based on a historical perspective of strategic plans, the most effective ones I've seen and or been involved in are the ones that are a little bit more nimble and flexible and a little shorter term. You don't want a 10-year plan anymore. Things change way too quickly in our world today to have a 10-year plan. So I would say on the long end, 5 or 6.
And I know there was I know you missed a component of this process, which was the metrics, the analysis, the evaluation of it.
So that comes in after the once you determine strategies, then you have key performance indicators with metrics aligned to them. But we've got to get to that. This is about creating that plan with the community stakeholders. Then it's our job as internally to figure out how we're going to measure that.
Right.
But this is the plan that comes to the from the community about, again, aspirations for our students once they are out of Carmel Unified School
Right.
District. What is it that we want to do here? So, for example, one could have a big focus area of academic achievement. That's a very gigantic bucket. We could zoom in and focus on literacy specifically. And under literacy, we might want to say, we want all kids to read. Everyone's heard me say this one, which is why I'm using it. We want all kids to read at or above proficiency upon completion of 3rd grade. And then we go in and we talk about what are our key performance indicators that are going to prove that every kid is reading at or above a grade level upon completion of third grade, because we might choose as a district a benchmark assessment. Maybe at that point we don't have a benchmark assessment. Like, we have to use what we have as a district available to us, because CASP isn't the only thing. It's definitely not the best, because it's one time a year, a snapshot in time of a child's abilities. And if you're having a bad day that day, or you're sick that day, then your results might not be all that helpful. You want to have a multi-pronged approach to that type of a goal, whereas something else might actually be a deliverable versus a percentage of achievement or attainment. So you get to the metrics deeper into the actual plan. You got to get to we have to have a plan first.
Sharon, are there things built into this to have real-time evaluation and adjustments being made, like annually or biannually? Or we're setting a plan and working on it until we're working on a different plan?
Well, I think that is that comes out, and we'll let Dr. Domini. Pancho, is Dr. Domini available? Okay, because he can certainly speak to his experience. But my experience with, again, I've had a variety of different experiences with different types of strategic plans, and we need to create something that has a little bit of flexibility and nimbleness, right? Like, we need to figure out what it is that we're focusing on first, though. So again, if there's something that is like the one I suggested, or the one I used as an example around literacy, if we say we want to improve by 5% and we improve by 4%, okay, we still improved, but what are we going to do? How are we going to do that? That's in those KPIs at the end, not necessarily in the plan. So let's see if can Dr. Domini hear me? Can you hear me? He should be there.
Maybe he's on mute.
I don't know.
Yeah, the question would be more like, we have this quest to do it and we just blow it out of the water, and these kids are doing it in second grade. Or what do we do now, and how do we make that?
And then we can adjust.
Yep.
Yeah. But that's why those metrics that we're asked about, those come after we figure out what the big focus areas, and then the strategies, and then how we're going to assess our progress.
Okay. That answers my question. Cullen, do you have anything to add?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
I have one more thought. Would it be helpful to publish a timetable of the process so that we get some sense of what would happen and what the expected committees would, moving this thing along? I think it would be easier to follow. It's just me, but this should be expected to happen with the community at this point, and then staff, or that kind of thing, so that people get some sense of the order. What do you think?
We can put something together.
If you think it's a good idea.
Thank you. If nobody has any further comments or questions, it's recommended that we approve this. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the proposed strategic planning and visioning process as presented.
A second.
Board President Jason Remenzi,
Yes.
Board Member Carl Palestrini,
Yes.
Board Member Sarah Hines,
Yes.
Board Member Anne Marie Rosen,
Yes.
Board Clerk Seabury Nockbar.
Yes.
Thank you. Agenda item 5C, public hearing and resolution number 24-17, sufficiency of instructional materials with Superintendent Sharon Ofek. Before I hand it over to Sharon, the steps involved in the public hearing are: 1, an open open the hearing; hear the presentation by staff; 3, hear comments from the public; 4, hear comments or questions from the board; and 5, close the hearing.
Do you want to gavel in? Open the
I
hearing?
can. I officially open the hearing for agenda item 5C.
Perfect. All right. So the hearing's open. So this is an annual routine item. The only reason why it's not on a consent agenda is because it requires a hearing. What we've done this year is updated the instructional materials that were adopted last school year, and those were related to some high school math courses. Not a ton, but we have some updated information on our document that was posted in the board item that was related again to those math classes. Other than that, we have enough materials and current and aligned to standards, and that's it. It's a pretty routine item.
Thank you. I'm not familiar with how this works. Do we do comment cards for this, or do we invite the public to comment if they have any comments?
Public.
Public's invited to comment if you have any comments. It looks like no takers today. Now we'll hear questions and comments from the board. Anybody can jump in. Yep. I will close this hearing for agenda item 5C, public hearing and resolution number 24-17.
You need to adopt it.
Now,
You can
close
do
the
that.
hearing. Sufficient. All right, may we receive a motion to approve resolution 24-17, sufficiency of instructional materials?
I'll make that motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Board Clerk Seabury Nockbar,
Yes.
Board Member Anne Marie Rosen,
Yes.
Board Member Carl Palestrini.
Yes.
Board Member Sarah Hines.
Yes.
Board President Jason Remenzi.
Yes. Agenda item 5D, National Demographic Corporation Report on New Housing Developments and Effect on Enrollment Trends with Chief Business Office Official Yvonne Perez.
Good evening. I'm pleased to welcome Kristen Parks, who is here in person with National Demographics. We also have Dr. Shelley Lapkoff, who you are familiar with. She did our districting, and Dr. Doug Johnson, who are joining by Zoom. Kristen worked extensively on the comprehensive demographic study, contracted as part of our long-term planning efforts. It was initiated a year ago, and the study was important to align our facilities master planning and staffing with expected student enrollment. The analysis and attached presentation illustrate the impact of future housing developments that may occur in our boundaries and their impact on enrollment. And so with that, I'll turn this over to Ms. Kristen Parks.
Thank you. Good evening. So, as you know, in your packet, we gave you a very large amount of information, and so I'm going to do a very high-level presentation, but I'm happy to drill down into any details if you have questions about specific topics. So, when we are looking at forecasting your enrollment into the future, we're really primarily looking at 4 factors. Future housing that will be constructed and potentially generate new students in the district is one of them. We also look at births because we use that to forecast our kindergarten enrollment, and then those students progress. We're also looking at the expansion of TK, or transitional kindergarten, in California, starting in 2012. This is a program statewide that's had a rollout, so we're looking at that. And finally, grade progressions or cohort survival. This is just looking at each cohort as they advance an additional grade, whether they are shrinking and contracting or expanding in size, and that would happen, of course, if families are moving in or out of the district, or if they're moving their students in and out of your schools and into private or homeschool, etc. We do also, in our forecast, take into account when we look at the elementary school level forecasts, we do look at the interdistrict transfers as well as the trends of out-of-district students as well. So future housing, we primarily are looking at 4 developments here, but in order to generate the information that we need in order to forecast for these 4 developments, we have to look at your entire district. So we did map 90 subdivisions using information from the county assessor's office, and then we geocoded your current student addresses onto this map so that we could see for each subdivision how many students there are currently. And so looking at future housing, we're only looking at developments that have more than 10 units. So I think there may be another one in Carmel by the Sea that is under 10 units. But primarily, of course, we're looking at the Tular attendance area, which is where One Carmel, Rancho Cañada Village, and Santa Lucia are located. So there is a bigger map if you wanted to zoom in and see any more of this information. But I'm going to go ahead to some of our numbers that informed our assumptions. So we looked at the subdivisions. Of those 90 subdivisions, 74 had students currently for this study was fall 2023 to 2024. And what you can see here is the type of housing, the estimated number of units, the fall 2023 enrolled students, and then we calculate that yield, which is just the number of students divided by the number of units. And of course, affordable and workforce housing are going to produce the most students. That's no matter what district we're looking at. I want to point out here where we have really low student yields. For instance, Carmel by the Sea, 0.01, so very few numbers of students relative to the number of housing units, as well as these post-1990 estate homes that are larger plots of land. And you can see here we had 159 students not in the district for fall 2023, and that total enrollment was 2,163. So going one by one through these new developments, I gave you a little bit of the methodology. Now I'm going to give you what the forecast numbers are. So for Ulrica Plaza, we're estimating 0 students. Because these are going to be 12 relatively small apartments in one building in Carmel by the Sea, which traditionally has very low student yield anyway, we're estimating 0 there. There's also no required affordable or workforce units. Santa Lucia Preserve, or as it was previously called, Rancho San Carlos, has constructed 287 homes already. So it's not necessarily future housing, but one thing that we investigated was whether or not there was affordable workforce housing. If you recall, there was initially going to be that 15%. And there are, as of the time of this study, there were 8 workforce units, and we do believe that there were some current students from those units. However, in discussions with the county planning office, we found out that those units will be demolished and there will be no long-term workforce or affordable housing in this development. So that's why estimated additional students here is 0. And those that are currently there, we don't know if they're going to probably move out of that development as that housing is eliminated and replaced with market rate. So that also gave us this sort of red flag that if this is an option now that is happening in Monterey County, where a developer that's previously committed to a certain number of affordable and workforce housing can instead pay a fee, we wonder if that may happen in One Carmel or Rancho Cañada Village. So we don't know, but there's now that precedent. So One Carmel is going to be similar in many regards of type of homes to Santa Lucia Preserve large estates. And so we have a range of estimates here. So the lower end is 0 students estimated. The upper end is 18. And that is because there are currently scheduled to be constructed 22 affordable condos. Oftentimes, these affordable condos could be filled with families or with seniors. So sometimes it can be difficult to predict whether or not those are going to generate students. For Rancho Cañada Village, this is where we expect to see the largest potential amount of students generated in your district, and that is because there is 40 affordable or workforce apartments that are in the plans to be constructed, and so we expect there is a potential there for those to be filled with families with students. So in total, when we're looking at how many students do we think might be generated, we have a range from between 0 on the low end to up to 52. And those 52 would be coming from One Carmel and Rancho Cañada Village. What that breaks down to when we're looking at the next few years is really just a handful of students per grade level, and that is how we assigned them. We didn't try to guesstimate how many were going to be in each grade. We just distributed evenly. So all of this factors into ultimately the forecasts that we'll show you. But I also want to take a moment to go back to this concept of looking at births. And we know statewide in California, births are declining, birth rates declining. So we look just at births in zip codes in this district. And so the black line here is the births within your district. That's the best estimate. And then the purple bars are the kindergarten enrollments. And we're actually looking at a huge amount of time here, all the way back to 1987, so 40 years. And you can see sometimes the purple bars are under the line, meaning that there are fewer students enrolling in kindergarten than were born 5 years ago. So the births we look at are 5 years prior, the students that would be entering kindergarten. There is this period of growth right around 2012, 13, where you actually have more students enrolled in kindergarten than were born in the district 5 years prior. So families were probably moving in. Going forward into the future, we can look out to 2027 because statewide birth data we only have up through 2022. I don't know why they haven't posted their 2023 births yet. But what we're seeing is this decline in births. So that is going to result in lower enrollment, first in kindergarten, then in elementary school. And a little bit down the line, several years, we expect that to be affecting your middle school and your high school as well. Will you see additional students from the expansion of transitional kindergarten? This is a little bit more up in the air because TK really, that enrollment seems to depend a lot on either the demographics of the district or whether or not you're actively promoting and trying to get those students. So what you see there, the purple bars, are your TK enrollments back from when it was launched in 2013 till now. You see it hasn't really had any steady growth despite the eligibility expanding. We're going to have full eligibility starting next fall, 2025. So we forecast high, medium, and low. The low forecast is based on the fall 2023 rate. And we are using a similar methodology here to the kindergarten. We're looking at eligible births 4 years prior and the number of months that were eligible for TK. So it's similar, a little bit different. And that rate for 2023 was 50%. So 50% of the births 4 years prior ended up enrolling in TK. Comparing that to kindergarten for fall 2023, 97% of the number of births ended up enrolling in kindergarten. So that's why you have a little bit of a wider range here of forecasts. But there could be some growth from TK. Putting this into, again, that long time horizon context, actually your district's total enrollment has been remarkably stable. It's gone up and down, but really it's stayed in this range of about 2,100 to 2,500. So you'll see when I show you the forecasts, we're not necessarily predicting or expecting anything wildly outside of this range. It's just, are we going to swing back up, or is it possible that with declining births, there's not as much of an upswing coming and there may be continued decline, right? But that would be historically anomalous. You can't really see it on the projection here, but we did shade the COVID years. Again, almost every district saw some declines in enrollment, of course, with COVID and things shifting online, lockdown. So you do see that decline happening there between fall 2019 and fall 2020, fall 2021, with a little bit of an uptick, but we really haven't seen the rebound that some districts we've seen a complete rebound. We're not seeing that here yet. So the question really is, are we going to continue this decline? And then our low forecast is based on 2022 to 2023, which you see is a dip again. So that's where our low forecast is coming from. Our medium forecast is coming from that most recent plateau years where you have the 2,511, so about 2015 to 2019 before the pandemic. And then our high forecasts are coming from that most recent uptick. That's the 2009 to 2014, so going up. So I know I'm going really fast through this, but it's a lot of number crunching. And here are our overall forecasts through 2030, high, medium, and low for TK through 12th grade. And tracking the 2024 from what we had forecast to what current enrollment is as of September 4th. September 4th, total enrollment was at 2,163, which is in between our medium and our high forecast for 2024. So that's kind of where you are relative to the dotted lines now. And then jumping into the school by school, I'm not going to go through each school. I'm just going to say that for River, you actually have a higher current enrollment than what we had forecast for fall 2024. For Tular, you're in between our range. And for Cooper, you're a little bit below. But it's kind of hard with Cooper to look at these low numbers and make forecasts. So in sum, this is the overall forecast for district-wide enrollment through 2030. And now that you know that the historical trends are up and down, you can sort of see that it's really the low forecast is the one that's anomalous. The high would be the one that sort of matches those historical trends. Although with the declines in births, we don't necessarily expect much future growth. So that is where I will close. The last thing I guess I'll say is that even though we are looking at potentially students from new housing and TK expansion, those numbers aren't big enough to compensate for what is the trend of declining births. So we will see probably declining enrollment within your district by 2030.
Thank you. The board did not receive any requests for public comment, so I'll open up for board questions, starting with Carl.
Remarkable in terms of the consistency in the enrollment over all these years. What's even more remarkable is Carmel, you know, with a lot of houses that nobody lives in because they're second homes. And it's going to get even worse there. So I don't know. It's a great piece of work, and it's helpful, obviously in terms of staffing, but I'm really not sure what to make of it.
Thank you. I found it fascinating to watch all the trends. Being at the very tail end of the baby boomers, I saw classrooms that had, you know, in Tular, I was in second grade, and it was 40 kids in a classroom. And it was amazing. And then you would go back and you'd look, you know, you get to fifth grade and you look back and you say, the kindergartners are not there. There's nobody there, and they're closing classrooms down. So this is fascinating to figure out what's going to go on. I'm in agreement with Carl. I mean, taking a look at all the, you know, empty homes that we have, you know, sitting here, and yeah, it's going to be an interesting. I'm glad that you're going to be the one who's having to make the predictions and not me. Thank you.
Thank you for this presentation, and I sort of get the feeling that you love the crunching of the numbers of this, and so like I love that too, that you I just was getting that feeling from you, but in all seriousness, it was really an interesting way to look at our entire district and the way you broke it down, and just to see the trends and, you know, looking towards 2030. It's just, again, just fascinating information. So thank you for taking the time to pull this together for us. Appreciate it.
So just out of, I'm curious, have you ever overlaid housing prices, it's like medium range of housing prices over birth rates and population declines? And I mean, I would imagine there's some correlation there, I would guess.
Yes, so one of the things that we talked about, I'm going back to births in kindergarten we can look at, is that when we had the 2008-2009 financial crisis, there's more going on, right, than just housing prices, right? There's also, for instance, right now we're having the high interest rates for mortgages. So it's a lot of different economic factors. But yes, we do think that you actually had maybe more younger families moving in that could afford homes, right? And then that perhaps was a contributing factor to why you have those kindergarten enrollments higher than the births for that period after that financial crisis. But of course, we're not in the business of making economic forecasts.
Right. Yeah, just anecdotally, with my neighborhood, I mean, I've been living in my neighborhood. I was out in Carmel Valley and then moved into Carmel, not by the sea, but just Carmel County, in the Monterey County area. And when my kids were little, we never went trick-or-treating in our neighborhood because there just was no families there. And then we saw this gradual increase in families, and yeah, you're shaking your head. Sarah and I are neighbors, and so I saw this gradual increase in families moving in, and so then we started trick-or-treating around the area. But I just think it's interesting, and I think it did kind of go along with, families being able to afford to live here. But yeah, this is fascinating to me too. I'm a scientist at heart, so I love these kind of numbers.
I have no questions or comments. Cullen, do you have anything?
Yeah, go after you.
Oh, thank you. No questions, but I think it's great that we're talking about this now instead of years down the line when it becomes a problem. Because I think we all saw the danger of low enrollment rates with JSS and how that turned out. So thank you.
Yeah, just a quick thought. We've relied to some extent on return students from private schools. And, you know, the argument has always been, you're paying for this anyway. And so I think the quality of instruction throughout the district has been a magnet. I think the rising tuitions in some of the local privates could be a factor, but it would be interesting to track the addition to our enrollment from the local private schools, because we have so many. You know, we have All Saints, and, you know, we have Stevenson Lower, Stevenson Upper, Santa Catalina, you know, all of this. So it would be interesting to me to know what that has looked like and what it potentially could look like in terms of programming or other things for the district.
Can I just interject for just a second? In terms of education of parents, is that ever taken a look at? And as you get more people who are coming down from Silicon Valley who have got, you know, higher educational levels versus, you know, the populations that were here, you know, prior to that. And I was just wondering if you're noticing, you know, anything with, you know, the birth rates, you know, going down or going up or staying steady. I mean, you've come in with people with a lot of money, but they're also very well educated, which tends to not have as many children.
Yeah. Statewide, at least, we're surprisingly seeing birth rates declining across the board, even among immigrant women of childbearing age. But I do have my colleagues on the line, Dr. Lapkoff and Dr. Johnson. If you want to jump in here and add anything, please feel welcome to.
Yeah, this is Doug Johnson, and Chris is doing a great job. I will mention on that note, there is a lot of study of that because at the college level, because the likelihood of kids going to college ties directly to if at least one of their parents went to college. But I haven't seen much at the K-12 level, and really seen others that has much in terms of those rates. It's more the cost of living, I think, that's driving the California changes.
Thank you. If there's no other comments, we do not need to take any action on this. This is an information-only item. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 5E, unaudited actuals financial report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024, with Chief Business Official Yvonne Perez.
Good evening again. So tonight I have the unaudited actuals to present. Just getting this ready. This is in my way. So as you know, we have 3 reporting periods that we bring to the board, and outside of that is the adopted budget. But this is unaudited actuals for the year ending June 30th, 2024. We're now in fiscal year 24-25. And so I also, because the SACS format requires us to add the adopted budget as a comparison to unaudited actuals. So you'll see that in the presentation. So here is that high-level overview that I like to show the board. If you focus in on lines 11, 12, and 13, it really tells a quick story of what's happened in the district. So we had, after you take out some of those contributions that we have to do in transfers, we had $63.4 million in revenue available in our unrestricted budget. And then we had $60,629,000 in expenditures, contributions, and transfers. And so that left a net increase of $2.8 million. We transferred $200,000 to facilities. If you'll recall, we actually have additional funds to transfer at some point because of ongoing projects that we have that the board has approved at other meetings for us to make those transfers when it's needed. We're tending to hold it in the general fund just until we need it because of cash flow purposes that you've heard me talk about in the past. And so we ended the year with a net increase of $2.6 million. And so this looks much higher than we've had in the past, and there are some reasons that we saw such a large increase in our net increase in our fund balance. And so we had, this was partially due to some vacancies. We had a tremendous amount of vacancies last year that we had originally budgeted for and that didn't come to fruition. And those vacancies are now budgeted in the new fiscal year. And we do expect to fill those positions. And then there were also a large amount of deferred expenses. So what happens when you're doing your financial statements is if it is not received by June 30th, then we don't report it in the year, in that year. And so there were purchases that were planned. They didn't come in by June 30th, and so they get reported in the next fiscal year. So basically kind of a carryover concept. And so that's what we saw happen this year. When you take those two factors into account, we really would have, if all of those things had come about, we would have had a much lower increase in fund balance. All right, and then on columns M, N, and O, you can see the comparison to the adopted budget. All right, this is a review of our ending fund balance and what that looks like. And so you can see that we had a $24.3 million unrestricted ending fund balance. And the total board required reserves there in column G are $18.1 million. And so 30% reserve, which is higher than we typically would have. And the board required reserve is $22.4 million. So you can see that we had a difference of $6.16 million. So then you ask yourself, well, you know, what would we do with that? What are the purposes of that? So you heard me talk about that a little bit. We've rebudgeted some of those expenses that didn't come to fruition on June 30th. But we have a designated fund balance in revolving cash, prepaid expenses, capital projects. So we have $2.5 million that we have in ongoing projects or planned projects that are starting this fiscal year and into the future. We always set aside $500,000 for textbooks because there's not a state-adopted textbook schedule. It's a little hard to predict. The state is behind, and so it's a good idea to always set aside some funds for that. Carryover from sites was $1.1 million, and then we are designating $2 million as a reserve for cash. All right, revenue sources of the general fund. Once again, I put some comparisons here. I put the actuals from 22-23, the unaudited actuals, the report that we're covering tonight for 23-24, and then the adopted budget next to that. I also broke it up between unrestricted, restricted, and combined. And then also I included a chart on property tax and what that looked like. So if you remember, in one of the reporting periods, I was concerned. And it was at the second interim report, because our large amount of revenue comes in December, and it did not come in as planned. It was much less. It recovered. It recovered at the point that it hadn't recovered at the point we were doing second interim, but as we started to see those additional revenues come in the different pots of money, it was recovering. But we still ended up less than what we had projected at adopted budget of that fiscal year. And so I included some comparisons there as well. Okay, use of our unrestricted general fund dollars, our salaries and benefits make up the largest portion of how we use our funds. And so 86.58% of our unrestricted dollars were used in 22-23, and we used about the same in 23-24, and our budget is down just a little bit in 24-25. And that's because at budget adoption, we were planning to use some grants, and we had to move some things around at year end to just for grant purposes. And so you can see a good comparison there of what that looks like. And then the other categories, major categories of expenses that a school district uses. Here's the use of restricted general fund dollars, and so you can see that comparison for total salaries and benefits. And then finally, we have the combined unrestricted and restricted general fund in green there. And you can see that in our total general fund, we have 82.91% of our budget being used for salaries and benefits. And this is just a graphical picture of those two things, how we use our funds in a pie chart. It's really quick and easy to see that the biggest part of our budget goes to salaries and benefits, and then our other large portion goes to services and other operating expenses. And the largest part of our revenue is coded as LCFF revenue. For us, that's primarily made of property tax. Contributions and transfers from the unrestricted general fund dollars to other restricted accounts and to other funds. And so, as you know, not all of our funds are self-sustaining. They require a contribution of payment from the general fund to support the fund. And so put some comparisons there as well. And a difference between 22-23 to 23-24 there in that last column. And I will point out that special education, as you can see, has continued to go up. And so we have to continually monitor that as well. So going on to celebrations, I have to come up with some new celebrations because I know that we have some. They're, we just do wonderful things in our district. So I won't read these out, but we are very fortunate to live in Carmel Unified School District and work with the talented staff that we have. And also our talented community. We have so many people in our community that contribute positively to the success of our school. Budget cycle and timelines. So I highlighted these things at many points in time throughout the year. We are working on 3 different fiscal years. So you can see that in the yellow and the green. And there's some pink that is not showing up there very well. So this is a timeline. So the board adopted the budget for 24-25, and you can see that in December I'll present the first interim report to the board. We're also finishing up our annual audit, and we're really making really great progress with our annual audit. We're ahead of schedule, which is exciting. Instead of we're down to the wire, so we're really excited about that. And this year, the state did approve which held up our audit last year. They approved our J13A. Thank you, Sharon. So this is just another way to present the reporting cycles for schools, just another way to look at that. And that concludes my report, but I would like to provide special thanks to Diana Gonzalez, the Senior Director of Fiscal Services and the Fiscal Services team. Diana, as you know, is leaving our district, and I'm very sad to see her go. She has been the strongest Director of Fiscal Services I've ever had the pleasure to work with. But she's going on to some, other great things in her life. So we wish her the best, and it will be hard to fill her shoes, but we will do it. And with that, I conclude.
Thank you, Yvonne. The board received no requests for public comment, so we'll open it up for board discussion if anybody has any questions or comments.
Once again, outstanding.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you, Yvonne, to you and your team for pulling together that presentation. It's always helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions. Thanks, Yvonne.
Thank you, Yvonne. Colin, do you have any comments or questions?
No, I do not.
Perfect. All right, so this is an action item, so we will need a motion and second.
I'll make a motion to approve the unaudited actuals financials report for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Board Member Anne Marie Rosen.
Yes.
Board Clerk Seabury Nockbar.
Yes.
Board Member Sarah Hines.
Yes.
Board Member Carl Palestrini.
Yes.
Board President Jason Remenzi.
Yes. Agenda item 5F, resolution number 24-16, GANN limit adoption with chief business official, Yvonne Perez.
Yes, thank you. So in accordance with Proposition 4, this resolution presents the district's final GAN limit calculation for the 23-24 fiscal year, and this always occurs at unaudited actual presentation, and the estimated appropriation limit for 24-25. And so I'm recommending approval of this resolution.
The board received no requests for public comments. We'll open it up to the board for any questions, and if there's no questions, can someone please make a motion?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to adopt resolution 24-16, which establishes the revised GAN limit for 2023-2024 and a projected GAN limit for 2024-2025 as presented.
Second.
Board Member Carl Palestrini.
Yes.
Board President Jason Remenzi.
Yes.
Board Member Anne Marie Rosen.
Yes.
Board Member Sarah Hines.
Yes.
Board Clerk Seabury Nockbar.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Yvonne. Agenda item 5G, review and consider adoption of resolution number 24-18, 1, finding the proposed Carmel Middle School tennis courts expansion project to be exempt under CEQA and adopting categorical exemptions. 2, approving the project, and 3, authorizing filing of notice of exemption upon project approval with Chief Operations Officer Dan Paul.
All right, this agenda item addresses the middle school tennis court expansion project, which, as a reminder, will create 4 new tennis courts to replace the courts at the high school that will be turned into parking lots as a future project. Staff reviewed the project with legal counsel and determined that the project qualifies under multiple CEQA exemptions and are recommending that the board approve the project and the notice of exemption.
The board received no request for public comment. If there's no questions or comments from the board, may I please receive a motion?
Oh, go ahead.
I move to adopt resolution number 24-18, 1, find the proposed project to be exempt under CEQA, 2, approving the project, and 3, authorizing district staff to let the NOE of the project with the Monterey County Clerk and OPR.
Second that.
Board Clerk Seabury Nockbar.
Yes.
Board Member Sarah Hines.
Yes, very exciting.
Board Member Anne Marie Rosen.
Yes.
Board President Jason Remenzi.
Yes.
Board Member Carl Palestrini.
Yes.
Agenda item 5H, emergency action authorizing reconstruction of school facilities with Chief Operations Officer Dan Paul.
All right, this is the emergency action for the Apple Pie Preschool building. This should be the last one. We're actually moving in this week and submitted some paperwork to DSA. So hopefully in October, we'll have all the invoices paid and the emergency action over, and everybody's happy in the new building.
The board received no request for public comment. If there's no request from the board, may I receive a motion?
I move to approve the continuance of the emergency action authorization.
Second.
Board President Jason Remenzi.
Yes.
Board Member Carl Palestrini.
Yes.
Board Clerk Seabury Nockbar.
Yes.
Board Member Anne Marie Rosen.
Yes.
Board Member Sarah Hines.
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. Next up, agenda item 5I, Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, Union President release time for 24-25 school year between CUSD and ACT with Chief Human Resource Officer Craig Chavez.
Good evening. The Association of Carmel Teachers was awarded a grant by CTA to pay for additional union president release time during this school year, 24-25, and beyond what is already provided in the contract for the ACT president. So this MOU provides information related to how that additional release time will be planned for, carried out, and also reimbursed back to the district, because this is a grant that was received by ACT from CTA. There is no additional cost to the district, as it will be reimbursed back to the district.
Thank you, Craig. The board received no request for public comment. And if the board has no questions themselves, may I please receive a motion to approve?
I'll do that. Memorandum, I make a motion to approve the Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, Union President Release Time 2024-25 school year between CUSD and ACT.
Second.
Board Member Sarah Hines.
Yes.
Board Clerk Seabury Nockbar.
Yes.
Board Member Carl Palestrini.
Yes.
Board Member Anne Marie Rosen.
Yes.
Board President Jason Remenzi.
Yes. Thank you. Agenda item 6, public comment on non-agendized items. Members of the public may address the board regarding items or topics within the board's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda at this time. And we'll start with number 1, Katrina.
Hello, my name is Katrina Hodges. I wanted to thank Yvonne Perez, I think it is, for bringing this out actually, because it's my concern is about the decreasing transparency of special education spending in our district. As a comparison, this month you had a consent calendar item on the Pacific Grove Unified School District, which listed no dollar amounts at all, no costs of services, no estimate of the number of students that are being moved to Pacific Grove. In comparison, last month you had two memory of these types of contracts with a Monterey County Office of Education and then a non-public school. Both of those listed at least estimate dollar amounts, though again, it didn't drill down on the cost of services. In contrast, a year ago, when you approved this same contract with Pacific Grove Unified School District, there was a lot of information. There were the number of students that was expected, the grade levels that they were in, the services that they were being provided, the cost of those services. This allows us as to get a real sense of like what costs are being even approved. So I'm concerned. I hope that the board had more information than the public did on this topic, but as Yvonne continues to bring up the increasing cost of special education, it helps to also have members of the public have eyeballs on where are these costs going. And when we're talking about kids that are being bused on a daily basis to local other schools like Monterey County and Pacific Grove and Monterey, the other big district in Monterey, Seaside Marina, it really helps us to know the number of students. So for example, last year I actually did analysis on this a year ago, and I wanted to share it a little bit because there were last year, and I don't have the data obviously this year to address the issue on the calendar for today, but there were 3 elementary school students that were being bused from Carmel to Pacific Grove Unified School District. And I think there were other students that were not elementary, but I was pretty focused on elementary. I looked at the number of service hours that they were getting. I assumed that if we moved them in district, they would need a one-on-one aide. But just adding in the cost of the program comparison to a one-on-one aide, my total estimate was that the district would have saved $46,997 if we'd brought these 3 students into the district. I kind of became passionate about this issue in our district a couple years ago when a friend shared with me that her friend's son or child, I'm not sure, I don't actually know the child, so was being bused from Kashawa all the way to Pacific Grove every day for special education. And it's a bummer because it's costing us more money and it's greater barriers to education for the kids that already have the most natural barriers. So thanks, guys.
Thank you for your comment. Next up, item 7, informal report from Superintendent Sharon Ofek, if we have one.
I do. So public comment is not agendized items, and therefore are not we're not able to speak to them, but I will provide clarification that tonight's MOU is just that. It's an MOU. Every student who attends schools outside of our district has an MOU with our district, and those individual costs for each of those students come through an individualized service agreement. And those service agreements need to be received by the district in order to present them. So I would urge you to reach out or wait until our next meeting when potentially we'll have those individualized service agreements available to us. But basically what tonight's consent item indicated to everybody is that we're in agreement with PG to help service our students to the best of their abilities in the least restrictive environment for them based on their IEPs. So with that clarification, I'll also move on to a few other clarifications that I've been thinking about. One of them is related to Schoolitics, which was commented on earlier this evening about how the district is no longer interpreting data. That couldn't be farther from the truth. Schoolitics is a data analytics tool that takes our data and puts it in digestible and easy to use forms and formats and allows our teachers, our administrators, and potentially hopefully soon, even our public to be able to look at dashboards to help them do some types of interpreting and take action to implement strategies and or interventions and or any other number of actions to improve student outcomes. So we have had this tool, not this exact tool, but a tool in the past. And I'm hard pressed to find a school district that doesn't have a data analytics tool and a data visualization tool. So I want to really be clear with the community and the public who's listening that that is an inaccurate statement to say that the school district is no longer interpreting its own data. There are 0 people provided to us by Schoollytics that interpret our data. They are creating a data platform, a data analytics tool is what it is. Hopefully also, what was clear from the presentation on the strategic plan is that we are receiving facilitator services. That strategic plan will be created by the stakeholders affiliated with this district, both internally and externally, and the plan will be Carmel Unified School District's plan, not some outside third-party vendor. It is a facilitator that is being provided because we want participation and everyone to participate without having to worry about facilitating and organizing a process. And that is a best practice. And with regard to auditing the organizational efficiencies, that too has been done in the past by outside parties such as school services, Total School Solutions, et cetera, for any number of different elements or aspects of this district. So I just want to provide clarification on comments that may be misinterpreted by the public.
Thank you. Moving on to item 8, board operations. These are routine status updates regarding campus activities, meeting schedules, conferences, meetings attended, and recent developments from the Board of Education. We'll start with Carl and work our way this way.
Not a heck of a lot, but I'm back to high school football up in the booth there with my friend Mr. Schreier calling these games. But girls flag football is a lot of fun. If you have a chance to watch it, do it. I mean, they can play.
My daughter was on this girls' flags football team. I think you were there at the time.
It's a league now.
I know it's a league. I think she had the 2 Texas twins threaten to do something bodily harm to her. But that's okay. She's tough. I went to the Career Tech Ed meeting. And enjoyed myself. I found out that there were 10,000 students that are involved in it across the county. So that is a tremendous number. We keep growing this organization. We keep expanding what pathways we've been involving in-house, and the JPA is actually reaching out and getting more resources available. We're looking into a lot of different opportunities for students. That we're going to be career-based, which is going to help them to focus so they know which college avenues to take, whether they're going to be taking them or not, and once they get there, what they're going to be looking at, what they're going to be taking. So it's a focus tool. So it's really, I've been very pleased to have been on this committee for a while. So thank you very much for that opportunity. And I just wanted to say that I got a photo. I visited with a friend of my daughter's who used to come down and visit all the time from Berkeley. And he was very shy, very, very tall, about 6'6", and he would consume vast amounts of food in my house and occupy the couch for a while. And I got to see him in action. He was one of the presenters for the conference that Lisa Brazil went to with the insurance, and I got 2 hours of his time the day before the meeting, so I got a chance to ask him all the questions about what's going on in the county, and he keeps now texting me back and forth as to what they're working on. So I am anxiously awaiting to find out what's going to happen so we can get some lower insurance rates around here and more reasonable hospital costs. So thank you for letting me have an opportunity to speak. I appreciate it.
Okay, I just have two quick things. One is pre-COVID, and I think one time post-COVID, the district participated in putting together community speaker forums in partnership with various service organizations around Carmel Unified, and it's something that I've been really passionate about since I've been on the board. So I know this is a little ways out, and I'll talk more about it as it gets closer. But Carmel Unified has partnered with the Carmel Public Library Foundation, and on March 13th, we'll be doing a community speaker event open to everybody in Carmel Unified on media literacy. And I think this should be a super interesting topic, especially coming out of our election cycle, because media literacy is the new term basically for fake news. So I think we all have an interest in that. I think it's a fascinating topic. We'll have a presentation by Professor Jevin West. So more to come on sort of the detail and sort of a summary of this presentation. But I'm very excited that this will be happening in the spring. And I'm hoping to partner with the district and different organizations within Carmel Unified. So for the next school year, we have more of a healthy speaker series to engage all different aspects of our community. So very excited about that. And lastly, tonight, I just want to take a quick moment, as Sharon sort of briefly touched on this, to introduce the idea of an anti-Semitism task force to Carmel Unified School District in conjunction with the superintendent and staff. The task force will be comprised of community members, school district personnel, students, union reps, and of course the Board of Education. When I know that there are students in our community that are continuing to have to endure any type of anti-Semitism, racism, or hate, the pain is on us for not doing anything about it. I'd like to actually thank the Federal Office of Civil Rights for taking the time to investigate the issues within our district. But the truth is, it never should have gotten to that point where it took government involvement for this community to realize that we have a problem. I personally am having to endure cyberbullying and insults. However, unlike children, I'm in a position where I can do something about it, and I intend to do it in a positive and productive way, as long as I'm on this board. I'm going to fight to make sure that not one child, staff, or community member has to endure this type of pain. But like it or not, it's going to take our entire community coming together. And as these incidents are not showing the best of us, we need not to be afraid to speak up. And I hope you will join me in helping make CUSD free of this intolerable behavior. Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah. I have just a couple updates. I went to back to school night at the high school. It was wonderful. I really enjoy those opportunities to run around the campus and have 15 minutes with each of my kids' teachers. And what an event it was, and I appreciate all the time and energy that was put into making that such a success. It was a celebratory evening. I think everyone was feeling excited and eager to get back to school. I've also been participating in some water polo games. My daughter's on the water polo team. And then Sarah and Sharon and I met for a couple policy meetings for board policy. And really, we did not plan this at all, but I actually have a statement to read as well. I think all of us are feeling heavy in our hearts with the upcoming election and the community. I think there's just some angst among the community, and I'm feeling it personally, so I was planning to write a statement as well. I put my glasses on. Civility and cordial disagreement have disappeared in today's politics. We used to have respect for one another despite a different point of view and could put differences aside to work towards a solution. Unfortunately, I'm witness to a small but loud group of individuals who are creating a new norm. According to anonymous ads, multiple attempts at a recall, and rude and hateful posts on social media, I am a liar, a thief, incompetent to run for any elected position, and unable to make decisions that place students as the priority. I am also seeing the bullying and harassment directed towards my fellow board members, Sarah, Carl, and Jason. To say that I am saddened at these actions and lies is an understatement. Those of us in this position are longtime residents of the Monterey Peninsula. We have raised our children here. We have worked and volunteered here. We have loved and cared for this district. And when we stepped up to serve, we did it with a heart that was eager and full of hope to give back. We are good people making difficult decisions. There is no ego involved. There is no hidden agenda. We were elected into this position to make the best decisions for our students. I knew that these decisions would disappoint and anger some, but what I didn't know was how that anger would take form in the way it has. I recognize that our decisions might not be agreeable to others, but let's not allow disagreement, which is the great part of democracy, become bullying and harassment and the new norm for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. That was more intense than what I expected. But I appreciate all the work everybody on this board does and the commitment that you have to the children of this district and making the world a better place. As for me, I got to just be a parent and go to back to school nights at 3 different campuses, 2 Larcitos, the middle school and the high school. It was all a great experience, and I'm just always blown away by the quality of education that we're offering these students and the amount of staffing we have per student and the support that kids get. Beyond that, I've been to a couple football games and checked out a field hockey game, which I'd never seen that sport before. My son's mom played field hockey in Pennsylvania, and that is a brutal, terrifying sport. They're swinging clubs at a ball right next to each other's legs, but it seemed really cool. I watched the game last night, which I think they did not pull off the win, but it's great to see all the neat things that these kids get exposed to. That's all I have for my update. So we will move on to agenda item 9, closed session. Before adjourning to closed session, the board will identify the closed session items and provide an opportunity for public comment on these items. Item 9A, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9, subsection D2, one case. Item 9B, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9, subdivision D1, Monterey Superior Court case number 23CV003225, Jane Doe versus Carmel Unified School District et al. Item 9C, conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code 54956.8, property 27885 Robinson Canyon Road, Carmel Valley, County of Monterey, APN number 169-131-005. Agency negotiator Yvonne Perez, chief business official Jessica K. Johnson, Dennis Wolver Kelly. Negotiating parties are Carmel Unified School District under negotiation, price, and terms of payment. Item 9D, conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code 54957.6, agency designated representative Craig Chavez, employer organizations ACT, CSEA, and non-represented groups. The board did not receive any requests for public comments, so we will go into closed session now. Good evening. Coming out of closed session, the board reports the following. Item 9A, the board met with legal counsel and provided direction. Item 9B, the board met with legal counsel regarding the case referenced on the agenda and provided direction. Item 9C, the board did not take any action regarding the property reference on the agenda item. This item will be revisited on a future agenda. Item 9D, the board met with district staff and provided direction. The board will now adjourn the meeting at 9:13 p.m.